Hello, I'm Sharon Weston. I am going to be teaching today's class for our cooking recipes for August, and we are going to be making some fun recipes that use fresh things from produce that is available right now at peak of the season. So we are going to be making buttermilk ranch dressing with some fresh herbs. We are going to be serving that with some sliced tomatoes and some cucumbers. We also are going to be making an oven roasted chicken kebab. And then we are going to be making some zucchini fritters, which are like zucchini pancakes, because there are zucchini like really popping out of everybody's gardens right now in the month of August. So we are going to go ahead and get started by making our buttermilk ingredient first. So if you don't have buttermilk, for the ranch dressing, we're going to need about 1/4 cup of buttermilk. And so the way that you can make that is by taking 1/4 cup of regular milk, and then we are going to add 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, or you could use white vinegar. And you're just going to mix that in, stir that in with the milk. If you don't have regular milk, this works with alternative milks as well, or lactose-free milk. And you're just going to notice that as soon as you add that lemon juice into the milk, it gets thicker. It's starting to really make that curdling kind of effect from the casein protein that's in the milk. And so we're just going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and get started with the component of our zucchini fritters. So we need a large bowl that's lined with some paper towels. Okay. Now I'm using a box grater. And I'm going to use this side of the grater, okay, not the very tiny side, but more the flat side that's got the larger holes. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my zucchini is washed. The ends are cut off, and then you're basically just going to grate your zucchini until you get about 2 cups. I'm going to need 2 cups. And then we're going to put it in the bowl that's lined with the paper towel, and we're going to let that sit while we do a couple of other things for our other recipes. And the reason why we want to do that is because we want to let the moisture come out of the zucchini. So we want to really squeeze that extra liquid out so that our zucchini fritters are not too liquidy. Okay. And so this is really going to work great for that. Right. So go ahead and just grate your zucchini. This works great for if you have zucchini that have gotten too big in the garden. You can kind of take advantage of this recipe for those big zucchini, and you can just kind of grate around the sides and avoid the large seeds that you might see in the middle. Okay, and so I'm just going to go ahead and add that into my paper towel lined bowl. You can also use a regular towel if you want. Okay, I'm just going to scoop that in there. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and let that sit. Move this stuff out of the way. And then we're going to get moving on to our next recipe, which is our chicken. Okay, so what we need for this recipe, first off, we need to have our oven set at 450. We are going to crank up the heat at the very end and turn it on to broil. So you need to have your rack set up in your oven so that when you put the chicken in first, it's going to be in the middle of the oven. And then you're going to, at the very end, move it up to a higher rack that's closer to the broiling part of the oven. And so that is helpful if you have that all set up now so that you don't have to move it when it's super hot. Okay. So what we're going to need is some skewers. Okay. Well, I have wooden skewers here. I have them soaking in water so that they don't light on fire in the oven. Okay. If you have metal skewers, that's great. That works out great too. Okay. And then I've got my baking sheet that I have just like lined with some tin foil. All right. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Yeah. So what we have here is about 1.5 pounds of chicken. I'm using chicken tenders. All right. And so each chicken tender I cut in half, so 2 pieces from each chicken tender, all right? And that works out perfectly for this. What we're going to do is we're going to add to the bowl about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So you need a large bowl and a good spoon, all right? We're also going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Okay. We're also going to be adding some salt. So about a half a teaspoon or so of sea salt. Or your preference. If you don't want it that salty, you can leave less. Okay. And then we're also going to add a little pepper. All right. So about a quarter teaspoon or so. Or again, your preference. Okay, now we're going to add some zippy spices here. So we're going to add about a teaspoon of garlic powder. And remember, a teaspoon is a third of a tablespoon. So if you have your tablespoon measurement out there, you can just use a third of that, okay? We're also going to add a teaspoon of onion powder. So mix that right ahead in. And then we're also going to add some thyme, all right? If you don't have thyme, you could use Italian seasoning, and that would work out fine. So about a half a teaspoon. Okay. And then we're also going to just mix that up really well, okay? So that we want all of those spices mixed evenly among our chicken pieces, okay? Now, if you don't like to touch raw chicken, you can use gloves if you want, all right? And then you don't have to touch it with your bare fingers. But we're also going to use some good hand washing techniques after we do this part, okay? So once we stir up our chicken, we're going to get our skewers out. And we're just going to thread 4 pieces on each one, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to just place that on our baking sheet, okay? If you have more or less chicken, that's fine. You can use more than 4 skewers. Totally fine. Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one. All right. And wash our hands really well. And now this is going to go in the oven at 450 for about 15 minutes in the middle, okay? All right, so we have our buttermilk started. We've got our zucchini that's settling in our paper towel, just getting the moisture taken out. And then we are now on to making our zucchini fritters. All right, so what we need is a bowl, okay? And we're going to take our 2 cups of our zucchini that's been sitting in the paper towel, and we're going to just pick it up and squeeze it so that we get that liquid out of there. And you can just squeeze it so that you get the liquid out. Okay. Really squeeze it hard. Okay. And then put that in your bowl. Okay. And a little fell out of here. I'm just going to squeeze that. There. And you can see that there is some liquid that came out of there. So that's what we're not going to use. Okay. All right. And so to this mixture, we are going to add a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of flour. You could also use gluten-free flour if you needed to. All right. And then we're going to add 2 eggs. Okay. And we'll just give this a good stir. We're going to add some spices as well. So we're going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, or again, you could use Italian seasoning. Okay. We're going to add a little salt. A little pepper. And if you want to make this spicier, you can add a little paprika or garlic, or cayenne pepper. I'm actually going to use some harissa seasoning just to add a little extra zippiness, okay? You can really tailor make this recipe, okay? So, and then we want to really make this give this a good stir to stir this up really well so that all of the flour and the Parmesan cheese and the eggs and the spices are really mixed well. While we're mixing that, we can turn on the heat on our stove. So I'm using a griddle, and or you can use a large frying pan. This is just like making pancakes. Okay. So we'll get that heated up. We're going to want to have a little oil on the surface. Okay. You can either use a paper towel or you can use a brush to just brush the oil so that it's nice and evenly dispersed. And you're going to need a spatula. Again, just like making pancakes. Okay. So we're going to want to get that heated up. So let's get back to stirring up our zucchini. So we've got our chicken in the oven cooking. And once this is on the skillet cooking, we're going to move on to just chopping some herbs for our dressing. All right, this looks pretty good. And looks like that's starting to get hot. So I'm just going to make some space here. All right, this looks like it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and make small spoonfuls on here, just like you're making like mini pancakes. Okay. So basically this makes 4 servings, 2 in the nutrition analysis, what I have in the recipes, 2 per person. And if you make them pretty even in terms of the sizes for all of them. Okay. All right. So while that's cooking, and you just want this not to be too high in heat, but you want it medium heat so that you are cooking it just like you're making pancakes. You don't want it to burn on one side, and then we're going to flip it in about 2 or 3 minutes. All right. While we're going to go ahead and get our herbs ready for our dressing. All right. And so this is where I've got some fresh basil. I also have some fresh parsley here. And then I've got my tomatoes. I've got my English cucumber here that I'm just taking out of the wrapper. English cucumbers are pretty cool because they don't have a lot of seeds like regular cucumbers do. And so give that a rinse, and then English cucumbers are something that you can really eat the skin on it if you want. You can peel it if you don't like it, but they're really an easy to go snack or part of a meal. So again, I've got my fresh herbs here, and I'm just going to start chopping them. So what you want to do is use a larger knife, okay, like a butcher knife, all right, and make a bundle. And then you're going to first pass over this just in a rocking motion so that you're slicing your herbs. Okay, make this first cut. And then once you've got that first cut, you're going to make them into another mound. And then you're going to really take advantage of that whole blade. Okay, so you're going to put the tip down and you're just going to rock the knife back and forth. Okay, so that you're really using a fine chopping motion. Okay, just keep moving the herbs back into your bundle, go back and forth, chop, chop, chop. All right, so that you're using almost like the butt end of the blade, not the tip. All right, so you just scoop that all back into a nice big pile and chop, chop, chop back and forth. And that way you're going to have finely diced fresh herbs, right? It's going to be delicious in the buttermilk ranch dressing that you're making. You don't want any big pieces. You really want this finely chopped. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay. All right, so we'll put that aside for a second. And let's go ahead and check on our zucchini fritters. So you can go ahead and flip them, just like making pancakes. They should be light brown. Okay, if they're not, you can flip them over again. That's totally fine. Whoop. That one. All right. Turn down the heat on this left side. All right. Those are cooking away. And then we're going to go ahead and check on the chicken in the oven just to take a peek. All right. All right, very good. So the chicken is cooking. It's been in there for about 10 minutes. All right. And so let's go ahead and just focus on our zucchini fritters here. And you probably need a plate to transfer them to. And again, you can just keep flipping them over and over again if you feel like they're not as light brown as you'd like. Okay. You'll fix it. Shuffle these around a little. All right, they're cooking right away. So next thing is to move on to making our dressing. Okay, so we have our 1/4 cup of buttermilk that we started with, right? That is looking like buttermilk, right? And what we're going to add is about 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise, okay? So I'm going to I have my measuring cup measure on the side here. If you don't want to use that much mayonnaise, you can do a mixture of mayonnaise and plain Greek yogurt, and that also works. All right. And then we're going to be adding a 1/4 cup of fresh herbs right into that. Okay. We're also going to add a little salt and pepper. And then we're going to give this a really good stir. Now, this is going to be good if it's kept in the refrigerator covered for up to 2 weeks. And this is a really delicious ranch dressing that has no preservatives or any extra ingredients other than just your buttermilk and your fresh fruit. So that is going to be our dressing, okay? So back to our zucchini fritters here. We're just going to give them a last flip. Good. Okay. Move off. And then our last thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting up our cucumbers and our tomatoes. Okay. So I've got here some, again, my English cucumber. I've got some fresh tomatoes. I'm just going to be cutting off and I'm actually going to use a serrated knife for this. It's much easier to cut tomatoes with a serrated knife, right? So we'll cut off the ends. And we'll slice up our tomatoes first. These are kind of small, so I'm using 4. This should make about enough for 4 people. And I'm just going to cut my cucumber in half here. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and slice my tomatoes up. And this is going to be delicious with our homemade ranch dressing. And then we'll just go ahead and place these on our plate. Or in a bowl, you could do that too. You can also add sliced red onion to this recipe if you like. Okay. And off these. Okay, and then we've got our cucumber. All right. So I'm going to slice the cucumber in half. And then I'm just going to cut it on a diagonal. All right. So I'm just going to make cuts like this. And then they just come out in a little more interesting shape. Okay. We'll scoop those onto our plate. And then again, do the other half. So cut it in half lengthwise and then just kind of slice it on a diagonal. When you cut vegetables on a diagonal, it just really gives them a new look. All right, so got that one. And the last thing that we're going to do now is we're going to head over to the oven and we're going to crank up the heat for 1 minute and put it on broil. We're going to move the chicken so that it is underneath the broiler. Okay, so I'll be right back. We've got our tomatoes here, our cucumbers, you can see. All right, we're just going to give that about a minute. All right, and so while that's broiling, we can just get ready to serve our dinner here. So we've got our tomatoes and cucumbers. We're going to split into 4 portions. We've got 2 zucchini fritters for each person, and then 1 of the chicken skewers, and then we're going to top that off with our buttermilk ranch dressing. All right. animals. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull out the chicken and show you what it looks like. Right, so we've got our chicken kebab, and they are good to go. And I hope that you guys enjoy this recipe. Thank you.